Ron James, and this is a very special edition of Space Time for MUFON Television. I'm here with Carolyn Cory, who just recently released a new film called A Tear in the Sky. She's got William Shatner, she's got Dr. Michio Kaku, she's got all kinds of new technology deployed on rooftops all over Southern California. How cool is that? Carolyn, thanks for being here.
Ron, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So, for people who haven't seen the film, let's hear a brief synopsis.
Yeah, so the idea was, how do I do something a little different, in the UFO world? And instead of kind of talking about the problem, can we actually validate the topic in a new way? And so, of course, I thought I would bring the science behind it. And as a filmmaker, as you know, being a filmmaker, the first thing you do is to investigate, to see what else is out there, who's done any sort of scientific investigation. And I was kind of shocked to see that the only scientific analysis we had was about analyzing existing footage. So the idea for this film was, let's start from scratch. Is it possible to set up an expedition with proper equipment and capture real UFOs in real time across multiple devices and then analyze the data scientifically? So that's basically the premise.
We forgot to watch the trailer.
What has made mankind is an insatiable curiosity. Insatiable. What is that? Nobody knows. The phenomenon.
Nobody's ever done this as far as I know.
It's a huge amount of work, a huge amount of data and equipment. That has never been done.
Whatever this is more complex than we could ever imagine.
This is a first in the field of ufology.
The variety of devices we're bringing as a team to study the phenomenon covered an entire spectrum of different technologies in real time.
That moment shook me to the core because I knew my life was about to change again.
I think we're gonna have like a couple of really, really good spots.
When I hear that you've assembled a team of top scientists using state-of-the-art equipment, I say to myself, it's about time.
This is an unidentified, unclassified new phenomenon.
Wow, Tic Tacs. Navy Tic Tacs.
Maybe.
Caught on our cameras. Yep. That's incredible.
Crazy. It isn't crazy, it's crazy. It's crazy.
We can go from body heat to very cold, like about minus 62 Celsius or minus 80 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
We will be transmitting data up to 800 terahertz in frequency. Our highest technology is up around 500 gigahertz.
I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to seeing what you've uncovered.
We're triangulating and converging at 2 points, the same object.
It's fading.
It's gone. It's gone. It's friggin' gone.
Saw something over Catalina. We need you up here.
We could be heading towards the biggest "see I told you so" in history.
That's what we need, the smoking gun that'll clinch it. That once and for all will settle the debate. No ifs, ands, or buts. And in the process, rewrite all of human history.
Oh my God, you guys. Is this the wormhole? It's insane.
Well, I have a little bit of information that you might not know.
Tell me.
So the one of the camera technologies that you guys were using, the one that tracks the UFOs visually, was partially created and released by Christopher O'Brien. And the prototypes of that camera, before they were perfected, I used to live in San Pedro, directly on the cliffs over Royal Palms Beach, so the ocean was my front yard, and that camera was brought to my house for initial testing. And so I have had one of those deployed in that area before. We certainly didn't get the kind of results that you did, but when I saw the technology that you obtained being used in that way, which is triangulating basically in my old stomping grounds, I just thought that was fantastic.
This is great. Yeah. I think you're talking about the Sky Hub, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what they call it.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is the UFO DAP, which is pretty much the same system. So
Yeah.
yeah, similar technology, and it works. That's amazing. And so did you have it on like the whole time running, or?
During the time that we were experimenting with it, we did. We had it
What?
run to my network, and we didn't really get that much. We only tested it for a couple of days. But there was the talk of doing this triangulated setup. The guys that invented the camera had been talking about doing that, and I just thought that it was so cool that you guys finally got around to getting it done, and you brought in a whole group of people that were capable of managing all these different sensors. You had infrared, you had audio, you had the tracking cameras tracking all the stuff, and it was as good as any kind of mid-level government sponsored study.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the idea behind this film is, we are civilians. And so with the technology that we have, and I have to say, some of the technology was, the normal night vision, 3 gen
Sure.
night vision and high definition cameras and things like that. But we also did have quite advanced, for example, the infrared, the FLIR cameras. These are
Yes.
industrial grade. For people to have an idea, each camera is like $50,000. It's those, and then the infrared range is about 10 times the regular night vision. And we had 8 of those, so we did have technology that was quite advanced. So it was a whole range. Plus, we had those inventions. We only shared a couple of those inventions. David Mason, who pretty much owned, most of the equipment, all the equipment except a couple, and so
Is that the UAPX group?
at the time, yeah, but David Mason is the one who actually owned
Okay.
this equipment, yeah, and so but he's also an inventor, and so we were able to use some of his inventions in the film and demonstrate. So that made this very, very unique. We were, for example, some of the inventions was you would look at a UAP and capture the light coming from it and convert it into sound and send back that signal. So basically, it was a communication system that was very, very different. And so using all this technology was across, pretty much the spectrum of physics, because as you were saying, we had spectrum analyzers, radiation detectors, RF devices, electromagnetic, just the whole thing operating 24/7 at the same time from 3 different locations. It was pretty amazing, and we only had 5 days. So in 5 days, for us to capture so much data tells you that, the government, says we don't have enough data, with all the radars and satellite and technology they have. It just doesn't make sense.
No, they've been studying this for a long time, and this whole story that we're being fed now, that basically we stopped at Blue Book and didn't pick it back up until OSOP, it's the biggest cosmic Watergate ever. And my film that's coming out, Accidental Truth, really is about blowing the lid off that time period. And so,
Awesome.
one of the things that's really amazing about what you did here is that you have proven just with the film, that we as civilians and with technology available to civilian people now, you mentioned the FLIR cameras, a lot of people don't understand that some of those videos we got that were released by the Pentagon are actually FLIR infrared footage, and that some of these objects do not always show up visually, especially in the past. And so it takes advanced sensors to be able to detect these things because they might not be visible to the naked eye. And so as this technology becomes available to the public and to people like you, then it is going to be easier and easier to put together elaborate detection and go all over the world and start picking these things up. And the government is not the gatekeeper anymore.
Exactly. That's exactly the idea behind this film. So that way we're not waiting for the government to tell us this is real. Of course, they did say they're real, with the Tic Tacs incident coming out in 2017 and after that. So they are starting to say these are anomalous events, but they're also saying at the same time, we don't have enough data, we don't know how to collect the data and all that. And so
do you
that's
believe
what,
that even for a minute?
not for a second, not for a second. And that's exactly what the film does, like what you were saying. Like, you can't tell me this because we're civilians with proper technology. We're able to capture not just one, but multiple anomalies. And, I have to say, I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, but it's important. Since the film, the scientists have continued to inquire, and I have also been reaching out to people, to scientists and experts, and even the government, trying to get additional data or even an explanation to what we found, especially the last couple of things in the movie. And at the SCU conference, I don't know if you attended that one.
I didn't.
Yeah, so this is scientific coalition, so there's all these scientists listening, looking at the raw data, and not one, we're talking hundreds of scientists have looked at this by now. We still don't have a plausible explanation for what we found. So, so this means that this film demonstrated without the shadow of a doubt that these are anomalous events flying in our skies, and there is a way to collect the data and to analyze it, scientifically. So, and also in 5 days, that's pretty short. I mean, that's how many people went on a UFO hunt, a UFO expedition, and they come back empty-handed, And so also you mentioned something very important, the infrared. Yeah, the cameras we had were exactly the ones that captured the Navy Tic Tac videos, and you cannot see these things. I mean, you could see the Tic Tac, but the other things that we captured, you cannot see with the naked eye. And so this means that we have a lot of objects and things flying in our skies that we can't see with the naked eye. But this means that we are being visited. There's something going on that, we're not, we can't just look at and say and figure out. So we do need this equipment. And that's what the film demonstrated, that as civilians, you can go out and do this and prove that this is real.
So let me ask you something. That area has always been known as a hotspot. I had a house in Laguna Beach overlooking about the same view that I had in San Pedro. And we actually brought Ed Grimsley and, gosh, what was the other guy's name? The UFO summoner. Anyway, they both came with night vision goggles, and Ed Grimsley did his thing. And it was a very interesting evening of using night vision goggles in that area. We didn't see nearly as much as you did, but that area it has a reputation, and there's a couple things about it. One is that next to Catalina is an island strictly devoted to the Navy, and then also that trench between Catalina Island and the coast is nearly bottomless. It's very, very deep, and you could hide anything in there. What made you choose that specific area to set up the triangulation?
Yeah, so what happened was when I was looking for people to join the expedition and to film it, I stumbled on Kevin Day. And I'm sure everybody knows in the UFO world by now, Kevin Day is the radar guy, operator in the 2004 Nimitz incident. He's the first one who captured it on his radar. And so when I spoke with him, he really touched me, with his story. There's a lot actually in this film that he talks about that he hadn't talk about in other interviews and stuff. So, but what happened was, as he was telling me his story, and he was telling me that that was his dream actually, to go back out and to see if they could capture these things with a science team, which he had. I thought, well, that makes sense, especially that in this area, as you know, other ships as well had captured similar incidents, the USS Omaha, the USS Kidd in 2015, I think, in 2014. And so it was kind of logical. Okay, if he's in this, he's telling his story, he's in the film, and it's kind of a way to see, were they all crazy? Is it possible to go back there? Especially having the other ships also being in the same area. So that's how we ended up going to the same area to see if we could repeat that, and we did.
That's very interesting. And Kevin Day is on the record as being very emotional about what he experienced on the ship. And there's another guy, Matthew Roberts, that was also on the Princeton, that kind of has the same sort of feelings about what happened. And so it had to have been a big thing for Kevin to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it was amazing because so that was the hope, that we would go back and capture something. It was amazing that we ended up capturing similar objects. It wasn't, I mean, what are the odds, that you would capture? So we captured objects that, flew against the wind, that looked like, it was elongated, that looked like a tic-tac. So that was strange. Then we captured things that were literally dropping from the sky at a very, very high speed. Again, just like those tic-tacs did before. So it was interesting, the common denominator, the similarities with the actual sighting in 2004 and the 2014 and 15. And so for him, it was a huge emotional, it was like it came full circle. It was like he felt like he was paid back because this experience literally ruined his life, because they were mocking him and saying all sorts of things. He literally destroyed his reputation, and so that's why the film helped him kind of come to terms with everything, find some sort of resolution. It was huge.
Another thing, as far as the trepidation that probably went with making that film, you really didn't have any solid idea of what you were going to uncover. And from what I understand, you invested a lot of your own money in making this film. There's nothing more difficult as a filmmaker than being just all in and just crossing your fingers that something's going to turn out. Tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Originally 2 years ago, I was thinking of doing the sequel of my previous film. And then I had this kind of guidance. No, do a UFO film. And so I was like, UFO, I don't know. And then like I said, I started to see that no one had done this type of scientific expedition on film. And then I met Kevin Day. So I was more and more convinced that I was on the right track. But still, like you're saying, it's like there's no guarantees of anything. And the closer we got and the more the bills, were piling up, I was like, oh my God, this is a huge investment. What if nothing happens, I was just praying for just one irrefutable, like 100% real anomaly that would blow people's mind, just one. And I just had to trust and then just go in and believe that it was going to happen. And sure enough, and also the first couple of days were a nightmare. We had all sorts of problems. The equipment, the software wasn't working, some of it that wasn't working. We had power outages, so that messed up all the calibration. We had to start over. So we literally, wasted this time just figuring things out, because this team had never done it before. We had never done it before. We didn't have any other frame of reference. So there was all sorts of technical problems we encountered. And sure enough, I kind of felt July 14th, something was going to happen. You know, I'm very intuitive. I do my own kind of thing. And sure enough, this is when we had the first sighting. And then we got more and more, and it got better and better and better until we got this final anomaly thing that totally blew our mind.
So we'll get to that in a second. I want to save the best for last, but I'm curious, how did you get William Shatner to chime in with you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And another thing, I decided to just use my own money at the time, like you were saying. So, because it's just easier, you know, as a filmmaker, it's easier to have a sponsor or an investor. But it was going too fast, and I really felt the urge to just go out and do it. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. So it was a huge investment. And by the time we were in post-production, I was done. But then we didn't have William Shatner. But then I was thinking, wait, I would love to have a person who will help us kind of bridge the gap, like be attractive to the mainstream. Because another purpose for this film is to stop this whole, you know, UFO people are weird and crazy.
Right.
And to make it more of a natural, normal conversation, especially with the government coming out and talking about it. So I really wanted to reach the mainstream. And I thought we need one figure, one person. And so somebody mentioned, well, you are on the shows with him, and I had met him before. But he's a legend. I mean, like, it doesn't matter.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if you know him as a friend, you still have to go through the management and the agent. So I thought, you know what, I ran out of money, so I can't, you know, so let's just see what happens, you know. And so I contacted his manager, and I said, this is what we're doing. This is the top, this who's in it. And at the time we did have a trailer without him, obviously. And then she sent it to him, and he liked it, and he said, okay, I'll do it, but this is the fee. And I didn't have it. I was done. And so I said, okay, well, if this is meant to be, it'll just happen. Ron, I swear, it just literally took 2 phone calls, and I had people, 2 sponsors basically said, how much do you need? And it was done. So it was just it just fell into place. It's one of those things where the universe is like, if it's meant to be, it just happens, you know, and it ended up being incredible. You saw him.
Yeah, it was really, it really helped the film a lot. Another person that's very notable, and I find it personally notable because last January, I actually flew to New York and interviewed him for my film. And that's Dr. Michio Kaku, who is a luminary of theoretical physics. And the idea that we can get him to come in and chime in on this kind of stuff is a huge breakthrough. Tell us the story of how you got Michio Kaku.
Well, you know, I started seeing him talk more about this type of stuff on Ancient Aliens and Unexplained and those types of shows, which I'm on, as you know. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. And he's talking about it so freely. And so I thought, this is incredible. As you know, he's so well known. I mean, worldwide, he's a legend as well. And so I thought, well, he seems comfortable. I'm just going to, I actually had his personal contact, and same thing. I said, if he's willing, let's see what happens. So I contacted him. I told him, you're going to be talking about UFOs, but it's a scientific investigation, but I want you to talk about the phenomenon in general. And he was totally comfortable. Oh, I said, can I have a phone, like the first time we talked on the phone before the filming, I told him what I was doing, and you know his first reaction, his first thing he said was, it's about time.
Yeah, he said that in the
film. What took you so long? Yeah, and I was like, wow. So, you know, that was huge validation coming from him. So when we did the interview, I said, do you remember what you told me on the phone? You know, he said, yeah, it's about time. It's incredible. So that was huge coming from him.
You know, it's really funny. I sent him the stuff that came out from the Freedom of Information Act request regarding materials and all those dirds that came out talking about all these different types of theories that we don't know we can do yet. And we went through each one of them. And it's really amazing to hear what he has to say about rather or not we can do this technology, how long it's going to take us to get there, and what his conclusions are. So he's very instrumental in getting the mainstream to pay attention to this. We've got other scientists that aren't really helping that much at all.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, I mean, you filmed him, so you see, you know how he is. He's so eloquent, and he gives you these perfect bites. I rarely had to edit anything that he says because it's like it fits perfectly. He answers you. He's so knowledgeable. So yeah, it's very, very lucky that we were able to have him, and him being. And speaking of Freedom of Information Act, I guess I can share that as well. So since the film, like I said, we still tried to get more information, one of which was satellite data. And so we started contacting government agencies and private agencies and everywhere we can think of. One of the requests was a Freedom of Information Act to get those satellite images of the location at the time that we captured those crazy anomalies. Long story short, they come back and said, we are the office for this, and we do have these images, but they're FOIA exempt, meaning classified.
Wow. Well, there you go. You know, a lot of times the truth is hidden in plain sight, and you learn as much from what they won't tell you as you do from what they will tell you. And it's getting harder and harder in the digital age to cover anything up effectively. So, you know, that FOIA, even though you didn't get what you were looking for, you kind of did.
Exactly. And you know, for all we know, maybe it has nothing to, I mean, it could be related, it could be not related. So maybe they were doing something else while we're doing, you know, I don't know. But regardless, it means there's something about that timing and that area where we were. And so, yeah, it is validation no matter what.
Yeah, so let's get to the climax of the film and the title for the film, A Terror in the Sky. Uh, there's a lot of theories now about portals. They're saying, no, that's what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch. And there's actually now scientific theories for what a portal might be and how it might work and all this kind of stuff. So it's not this strange airy-fairy thing anymore that is, you know, ambiguous in what it means. We have an idea, if portals exist, what they are and what they're used for. And you definitely caught something that could very well be consistent with that kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Because, and also, I mean, even in physics, I mean, there is warp physics, and you know, that allows you to basically travel through some sort of portal.
Wormholes.
Wormholes faster than the speed of light. So we're not talking crazy stuff anymore, woo-woo stuff. And so this particular capture was insane because it was a sort of an opening and closing, and which revealed actual objects.
Actual objects.
And we know they're objects because they were caught on the radar, and the radar picks up on reflective objects. Doesn't tell us light, doesn't pick up on light or
radiation. No, it has to be a solid thing.
Yeah, and so that was totally crazy. And then when that thing closed, there's a few of these objects that popped out of it, and you can see it so clearly. And so as you know, I want to mention that the scientists in the movie are hardcore scientists. They're not even, you know, open to any sort of communication with aliens. I mean, forget it. It's just like nuts and bolts. Let's measure everything, you know. So they basically end up debunking themselves. When we see something, we capture it. The first thing, you know, it's a camera glitch. No, it's not. It's birds or animal or you know, some sort of. No, it's not, because also it correlated with a huge spike in radiation. I mean, I'm talking massively. It's like 42 MeV. The normal is like 2. And so then, you know, they check every single possibility. Maybe it's a solar flare doing some strange thing. Maybe it's, you know, NASA doing something, you know. So when you check every single possibility and you still come out with nothing, what do you call that? And so because it's an opening and closing and it's revealing objects, so we called it wormhole. But then there's scientists, so they're so nervous like to be out there saying these things, but that's exactly what we think it is.
Right,
We just have to prove. I mean, again, like no one's discovered a wormhole, or they talk about it in theory. I'm talking the scientists, but
Sure.
what does it really look like? How does it work? That's still very, very new to this whole phenomenon for sure.
Well, the more that unfolds about this, the more multifaceted the answer seems to be. It's not so much, well, maybe it's aliens from another planet anymore. There's all kinds of elements that have to do with consciousness, the nature of reality, time travel, interdimensional aspects, and all of the different phenomena that come together, forming experiencer syndrome, forming near-death experiences, angelic encounters, spiritually transformative experiences. There seems to be more and more of an acknowledgement that there is no one answer to this, and that the answer may be everything we can surmise, checkbox, all of the above. And so this is where things are evolving, and it's really fascinating to watch it unfold. And when we're talking about these things, like what you may have captured in your film, this is beginning to give us solid, provable evidence that at some point it's going to get stronger and stronger. We're going to have to come up with science to explain the evidence instead of evidence to explain the theories.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm so excited about this film. I mean, in fact, that's what got me into this whole world in the first place. I'm not interested in just UFOs per se. It's the phenomena. Like, how is it possible? What is it in the universe and the fabric of space-time itself that allows an object to appear and disappear, that allows an object to fly, in a strange way or zigzag, or fly without a propulsion system because they register cold. I'm interested in the mechanics of the universe because it's the mechanics of our reality. We're trying to understand what is the nature of our reality, and that's what's so fascinating to me. So the fact that we stumbled on that as opposed to just the flying saucer time, which we also did, it's so exciting for me. I mean, the implications are tremendous, and I can't wait to see what next, especially, for example, at Skinwalker Ranch as well. I had been on the ranch a while back, and I knew there was a portal right there at about 4,800 feet, and so I'm so glad they are also starting to have visual evidence of objects appearing and disappearing into nothing.
Right.
Yeah, but we in A Terror in the Sky, we actually have a visual recording of that opening and closing and those objects. So it's just so exciting, and like you just said, it's not one thing. It's much more complex, and it's so many things, including especially consciousness and how we connect with the universe and the nature of reality. It's just fascinating to me.
What I find really funny is I'm kind of becoming a believer in some form of simulation theory. Not necessarily that we're all sitting inside of a computer game or plugged in like human batteries to a matrix, but the very mathematics by which the universe works are comparable to a computer algorithm. And the fact that we already know scientifically that matter doesn't really exist in the form that we perceive it, there's a pretty good case that this whole thing is some kind of illusion. And when people are saying, well, it's this or it's that, or they're from here or they're from there, what they're really missing, that's the micro, and they're missing the macro, and which is, if the nature of our reality is an energy-based, algorithm-driven program, then all of these things can be possible, and all it takes is a little change in the formula that makes everything work. So I feel there's a strong possibility that these things are here in part to expose the true nature of our reality to us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we're being given pieces of the puzzle, of the bigger picture. And I agree with you in a sense that it's kind of all an illusion or a projection of consciousness. It doesn't mean that parts of it that it's not real. That's another thing that people confuse simulation with being real. And I think that's what you meant when you said, I don't think we're inside a computer. There is something that's real, but because when you have a group of people or a collective observing the same event and coming to a specific conclusion, then that is what we can call real. But it's only temporary, if you will, and that's what makes it kind of more of an illusion. So I totally agree with you that everything is energy, and it manifests as physical world, physical life, physical aspects, here and there, but it's all at the base. It's fundamentally energy and consciousness. I totally agree with you.
Exactly. And we have consensus reality, which is what we're able to jointly manifest and collectively agree on. And then we have subjective reality, which is there's a certain amount of how we perceive things that our perception drives the reality. So it's a very interesting formula that makes it all work. But the bottom line to understanding things in that way is that just about anything is possible. And just because something might have happened to one person, something might have happened to you, something might have happened to me, and we all describe them as different things or not at all, it doesn't take away from the possibility that those things really happened, even if they only happened within your own reality.
Exactly. And that's, I think, what science is struggling with. For them, everything has to be finite, meaning 2 + 2 always equals 4. 2 + 2 can never equal 5 or 1 or whatever.
Well, it doesn't work that way in physics.
Yeah. And what we're saying is that, but there's subjective laws as well. It only takes one person. They think you have to have bunch of people breaking the laws of physics. It only takes one person to move an object at a distance, or to do, in a Faraday cage or what have you, like do something that would break the Newtonian laws of physics to demonstrate that we don't have the whole story, and we cannot use physical laws to explain non-physical events, subjective events. The fact and the matter is these subjective non-physical events are also real. We just don't know how to explain them yet.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far into the whole science thing, but I'll give you and the audience a place to check. They've proven in plant physiology that when the laws of physics don't work, there are certain mechanisms that allow the laws of physics to be cheated on. That you can go outside of the laws of physics and perform an operation and then collapse back in. And that was first demonstrated in plants with a thing called quantum photosynthesis. And for the audience and anybody else, check that out, what that is. I don't want to get too far off your film. You guys left the film with boatloads of data that nobody had gone through. Certainly there's going to be huge opportunities to deploy this. Is this going to turn into a franchise?
Yeah, I'm hoping for it to be a series, which is very clearly, it's obvious that could be the case. However, because of especially the last two events in the film, the ones where we have these objects dropping in the water at amazing speed, and then of course the wormhole situation, because of that, I think the next step is we're going to have to go back to validate even more or see what else we can capture, especially about these two events, because they're still mind-boggling, and especially with the FOIA thing I just explained. And so there's that is kind of an immediate in the plans, in the works. But as you just said, how can we stop now? If in 5 days with the proper equipment we did that. In fact, for the next one, we learned so much that the next one, even the technology is going to be more refined, more specific. The planning and all the mistakes or all of the problems we had before, we're going to plan better. So so I'm hoping that we're going to do a series of those for sure.
So there's some key players, guys that we know go all the way back to NIDS and even before that. and I'm not going to name names right now, but have you reached out to any of them about the project and seen what kind of response you get? Because some of these guys already know what's going on, and some of them are front facing and public figures.
Oh, for sure. Are you talking about Bigelow and those guys?
Yeah, there's Bigelow, there's Hal Puthoff, there's Jim Lutasky, there's Colin Kelleher, there's Dr. Eric Davis, who
Yeah.
Who wouldn't interview for my film. There's Gary Nolan, there's Lou Elizondo. These guys are, especially the ones that spent a lot of time at Skinwalker Ranch. John Alexander, who I interviewed for the upcoming piece. These guys already know a lot that they're not telling us. Have you reached out to them and said, hey, did you see my film? What do you think? Would you like to chime in for it maybe in the future?
Yes, I actually, well, first of all, Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, and yeah, I tried a couple of those guys, but they didn't want to be involved at the time. But I am reaching out to some of the others right now, especially, like I said, because of some of the findings, and there's more that we'll tell them at the time. But what I want to say is I don't think every single one of these people that you mentioned really know everything. I don't know.
I don't think any of them know everything. I think that it's such a compartmentalized situation that there's probably only a handful of people, and half of those might be dead. I mean, that could be part of the problem with this whole UFO secrecy thing, and why we're not getting answers is because we know that when this was being formed, the secret was very deeply buried, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of institutional memory of a lot of this stuff. And so you have stories, and you have boxes of debris, and you have stuff that the military is notorious for destroying history. They will burn something before they will ever admit that it happened. And so as much as we're down on the government about keeping this stuff a secret, they might not really collectively in any one place have the whole story either, at least not anymore.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we are hoping, or we think that the government is just, even that department, whatever, that it's one voice, one body, and they all know everything. And I'm like you, I think no, I don't think so, because in any organization you're going to have one guy who does know everything, but then the guy right next to him in the same department just doesn't, because of whatever, I mean, whether they do it on purpose or not. And so when you are interviewing the guy who doesn't know anything, and he's saying I don't know, or we don't know, because they really don't know, I think.
Sure.
So I think that's part of the problem. We're expecting for the government to, this whole disclosure thing, and I don't think it's that easy, or that, and that's why I was like, you know what, let's stop waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just I'm very result or solution oriented, instead of, we know the problem, so what can I do to just move the needle, just keep moving forward and find a way to find a solution. And that's the reason why I took it on myself, to fund this project. And I'm just going. We're not going to stop now.
That's fantastic. So again, the film is A Terror in the Sky. It's already been out for a little while. If you haven't seen it yet, Carolyn, tell us where people can watch it that you would most like to drive them to.
I would say people can watch it on Amazon. That's the preferred platform, but they probably should go to aterrinthesky.com, and they'll see all the platforms there in case they don't have Amazon. They'll have the choice, but also it's because we will be posting updates, on new things we've discovered or what's coming up and things like that. So aterrinthesky.com or Amazon.
Fantastic. And again, I'm Ron James. This is a special edition of a little show I do for MUFON Television called Space Time. This is Carolyn Cory. The film is A Terror in the Sky, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. This was awesome. I appreciate it.